And his uncle is a paedophile who molests him. And is this the least sensitive depiction of a paedophile, of child abuse ever in a movie?
Obviously, I'm not laughing at your point, but
It's
it's in song form, and he's like, "The lights go out, your drawers go down."
Down with your bedclothes, up with your nightshirt, fiddle about, fiddle about.
This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show.
So, director Ken Russell isn't actually a fan of rock music. He kind of hated all rock music at the time. And he wasn't really a fan of The Who's music either. Or the album Tommy, which was, of course, what this movie was based on.
Yeah.
But he really loved the overall idea about psychosomatic, deaf, dumb and blind boy
Playing a mean pinball.
discovering the light, as he put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing a mean pinball. Which I also always liked Carl Pilkington's take on it, where he said, don't bother putting money in. Because he's not going to notice.
Yeah. No. That summed it up perfectly, though. Well, no, because because he's deaf, isn't he? So
he's deaf, dumb, and blind.
It's one of his advantages is because he can't hear the noises from it, so he can concentrate more.
Well, it's interesting because I kind of assumed this was a Ken Russell project from the start, but it wasn't. And there was a bunch of scripts in the offing before he came on board, and none of them. He didn't like any of them because he thought, firstly, all of them took the album too literally. It was just, they basically just put every song to script form. And he also didn't like the fact that he just didn't feel like it wasn't about what he saw the story about, which was the theme of self-reflection and figuring out, getting past your own life, personal trauma, and rising above it. Which I guess that kind of threw me when I found that out as well, because when I was watching it, I thought the only way you can possibly take this is as symbolic. And I was running through my head like what is the point of this? Like, is Tommy symbolic of the Cultural Revolution? Because I kind of his lifespan timed perfectly with it. Also in terms of when he finally finds his voice about 2/3 of the way through the movie, and then the outcome of that, where he starts becoming almost like a messiah-like figure.
Yeah. Like
it kind of, it's represented by a lot of the fandom that you would associate with the Beatles and Beatlemania.
Went crazy as Tommy hit the stage. Little Sally got lost as the police brought the crowd back in a rage. Your happy welcome is like a favor I must now return. The darkness of my childhood past and flames of love now burn.
So there was all these things going along where I wasn't sure what it was supposed to represent. I wasn't sure what the point was, and maybe I should take my own advice, like I always say in these reviews, and stop looking for a point and worrying about what it means, and just see if you enjoy it or not.
There were some songs that were really good. Obviously, I'm going to take away. Obviously, it's from the Tommy album. Obviously, it's got a lot of cool cameos in it. I must say that, but I was kind of looking for that symbolism as well.
Also, you can't drop in cameos without mentioning Jack Nicholson.
The kind of stimulation needed to remove his inner blood.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson shows up for like a 10-minute period where he plays a psychologist, and I had to do a double take because he's a young Jack Nicholson as well, so I'm not as... His like appearance in his late years is a lot more fresh in my mind, so I automatically recognise him. And I feel like he became a lot more distinguished and unique looking as he got older. So I had to look it up after to confirm if it was him or not. And apparently he was not even a huge Ken Russell fan, but he was kind of intrigued by him. he said something along the lines of that half his films he loved and the other half he hated, and he was kind of fascinated and he wanted to work with him once just to kind of see how he works and see how he ticks and figure out how someone can produce so many hits and so many misses as far as he saw it. What other good cameos? Elton John.
Yeah, Elton John turns up.
Who also, this is a bit confusing to me as well, he's credited as the pinball wizard as opposed to Tommy.
Well, from what I could work out from it, he is the current champion, and then obviously there's a line in the song where he's like, I won't let a freak beat my record or something. Obviously they've got to give it to someone, but I just thought it was strange that he was chosen to just sing a song.
There was a lot, I feel like there was a lot of buzz around it for a long time, and a lot of people wanted to be a part of it. Like David Bowie was offered a role at one point, or considered for a role, and a whole host of big stars at the time. So I think it was a project that a lot of people wanted to be a part of, and there might have easily been a few more surprising cameos.
Yeah, I totally...
Like Oliver Reed is in it for starters as one of the titular characters.
Yeah, he's in it, but I totally missed Tina Turner and Eric Clapton until I went back and looked at the cast. I had to actually watch it. Well, I watched it once yesterday, and I had to re-watch it today before we've done this episode, because it was just so much to take in, and I felt like, even though I'd watched it, I couldn't remember what actually happened. I had to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I stopped taking notes after a certain point, because I was like, I'm missing the point. I feel like if I'm trying to just make a note of this happened and that happened and thoughts that I had, it's not that kind of movie. It's an experience movie. And speaking of Tina Turner, I could not believe that was Tina. I didn't clock that at all. But speaking of cameos and other roles and this and that, who do you reckon was originally cast for Tina Turner's role?
Oh, good question.
Big lips.
Let me try and guess this. Big lips.
It's a man. Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger?
Yeah.
You know, man.
Which, how good, Tina Turner's good, but how fucking good would that scene have been?
But is Tina Turner a prostitute, or is she just someone who gives him, drugs?
Well, do you know what? I actually don't think she was a prostitute. I think when you find out that Mick Jagger was nearly going to play that role, it makes a lot more sense. I feel like Tina Turner came across as a prostitute because, firstly, I got the impression that the stepdad was running a brothel.
Yeah. No, he definitely was, because this is Oliver Reed's character.
Yeah.
He goes up. It's a striptease. Yeah, he is. I think.
So I'm guessing it was just going to take place in a strip club or a brothel, and Mick Jagger was just going to be a crazy druggie who introduces them to heroin.
Yeah.
The fact that then it got recast as Tina Turner, I guess it just felt like she was a prostitute and she was dressed like a prostitute. I don't know. It was a bit because I agree with you. It was very misleading. And even the lyrics she was singing, I was like, it sounds like she's taking him upstairs to fuck him.
Yeah.
But then he gets up there and he's in his spaceman suit filled with syringes, and he's getting high for the first time, and he's got that glazed over expression, and he starts seeing images of his dad, which is a good point to bring it back to the beginning, because we just rushed straight into it without really getting into the plot. But the whole movie is about trauma, and Tommy, at a young age, well, before he's even born, his dad, who's away in World War II fighting, he's a fighter pilot, is shot down, which somehow his mother seems to envision during the nightmare. But what they don't know is that he's actually still alive, although badly injured. And he's slowly, over the years, trying to make his way back to him. Meanwhile, Tommy's mother gives birth, Tommy's born, and while away at a holiday camp, sort of like a creepy...
Butlins.
Psychedelic
Yeah.
Butlins or something.
Yeah.
They meet Oliver Reed, who ends up becoming Tommy's stepdad. And he's a funny character as well, because he's kind of a piece of shit. A lot of a piece of shit, but he's maybe like a fifth nice.
Yeah.
He does have moments with Tommy, doesn't he?
Well, he clearly was all out for later on. The mum was a bitch herself.
The mum was a hard character to work out as well, because she meets Bernie, and Bernie's like, not Bernie, Oliver Reed.
Oliver Reed, yeah.
She meets him at Bernie's camp, and he's like singing creepy songs and like touching her legs and stuff. And
yeah.
Tommy's just there like clapping away, not knowing what's going on. But understandably, the mum's like, you know, she says like, you know, I haven't felt a man, had a man interest in me in so long, blah blah blah. By the way, Ann-Margret, how fit is she?
Yeah, she was quite fit, man.
Do you prefer her as a brunette though? But she is fucking sexy in this.
What other film she been in?
She was a singer mainly.
Yeah, how old is she in this roughly? Because obviously I looked at pictures of the cast now, and her face was bare old and shit.
I mean, I'm talking about at the time of filming.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he comes back with them, and they kind of move in together, and Tommy's all happy, and it's all good.
Yeah.
Maybe like 4 or 5 at this point. And then they're shagging one night. I think it might even be the first night they're back. They're shagging, and then Tommy's dad returns, and he comes into their bedroom. And then Tommy hears the commotion, and he walks in, and he sees his dad being murdered. You're looking very confused right now. Is that all you understood to happen?
No. It was just like, because there's a lot of this film where it does, it is really trippy and it confused me. Like, was the dad in the room this whole time? It just steps out of the shadows.
Do you know what?
I don't understand.
I do get what you mean, because when I first saw the scene, I thought, is the trauma actually Tommy's just seeing his mum fuck this guy, and he doesn't understand it? And I thought nearly his dad being killed was symbolic imagery in his own head of like, this is what it nearly represented, like his dad being replaced. So I rewound it, and no, I'm pretty sure he actually was there, and he had survived the war, and he came in, and his mum was also complicit in the murder. And this is what traumatizes Tommy to the point where he immediately becomes deaf, dumb and blind.
Yeah, he loses all his senses.
And he doesn't speak again until really late in the movie, where he doesn't sing again. But you sometimes get this occasional sort of, I don't know if it's supposed to be a voiceover just for us, or it is coming across to the other characters somehow, but you hear this childlike voice singing This is the thing with this movie, is a lot of it is just complete bollocks. Like, it's just stupid, it's goofy, it's bombastic and over the top and ridiculous. But there were moments where I was like, that is actually really effective. Like those moments where he would, you know, you have this deaf, dumb and blind kid who has no way of interacting with the rest of the world or experiencing most of the world. He can touch, but that's it. And the idea of him, you know, hearing that voiceover calling out to be touched and to be seen and to be felt, that actually did get me every time it came up, when he was a child and when he was an adult. And the imagery with the father, when he sees his father being killed, and everything after that, and when he's at the arcade, and he's Oliver Reed's character has him gunning down the pilots in the video game, and moments like that, it did get me. And in a certain way, it's such raw cinema, because I think for the first 10 minutes there's no dialogue at all, no singing dialogue, no singing lyrics, no dialogue. There's not even diegetic sound. It's just instrumental music over visuals.
A lot of this music, I'm going to have to touch on this, and there's a scene later on with Jack Nicholson's Doctor. It reminded me so much of A Clockwork Orange. obviously I don't know if we're going to touch on this, but they've done experiments later to give him back his sight, and it was exactly like the test in A Clockwork Orange, where he's like, his eyes are peeled open.
Yeah, but not just that's like really obvious, probably maybe intentional nods, but just the feel of the movie and the vibe of it is down probably largely to the fact that it was an art house movie in the mid-70s in England, so naturally it's going to have the same sort of look and vibe and feel in a lot of ways. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, there was the same sort of uncomfortable atmosphere and feeling you get. The same feeling I get when I watch A Clockwork Orange. So Tommy grows up now, and he's still deaf, dumb and blind, and you see that his mum, especially his stepdad, but his mum as well, are starting to resent Tommy because they just can't get through to him. I think she's starting to resent him as a burden. She's just starting to think, she's maybe a little bit ashamed of him. And she's starting to reject him a little. They're going out more often, leaving Tommy behind. And there's this 10-minute segment where we follow the cousin and uncle that Tommy's been left alone with, or being left to be looked after by. And the cousin is a prick who's just basically beats the shit out of him and drowns him and does all kind of horrible abuse. And his uncle is a paedophile who molests him. And is this the least sensitive depiction of a paedophile, of child abuse ever in a movie?
Obviously, I'm not laughing at your point, but
it's
in song form, and he's like, the lights go out, your drawers go down.
Down with your bedclothes, up with your nightshirt, fiddle about, fiddle about, fiddle about.
I fiddle about, and I'm like, what?
It's like someone's dancing a jig while singing about abusing a child. And then I was also a bit confused because Tommy's now being played at this point as Daltrey.
Yeah, that was confusing as well.
But I guess he's still supposed to be a child at this point. I was a bit confused. But yeah, at one point he literally has Tommy hanging over his shoulder as he runs upstairs and is molesting him. And it's just all presented in this really happy, jovial, silly sort of way.
Yeah, and
then sorry, go.
Sorry. And then Oliver Reed comes back, and he like kind of catches him like molesting him, and just starts smiling. They made this whole point. The mum was making this whole point of doing a song like, "Is it all right to leave the boy here?"
Yeah.
And then Oliver Reed was like, "I think it's fine." So I think like he obviously knew he was gonna get touched up. And I was just like, what is the point of this?
Well, there's interesting dating in a couple of times in this movie where it dates itself. Like, the molesting uncle also is reading a newspaper that says gay news at the top of it.
Yeah.
And Oliver Reed sets fire to it. But I guess, I don't know what the association is there, like paedophiles and gay people are the same thing. Or, see, it's weird, like back in the day, you speak to people sometimes who grew up in the 70s and it's as if paedophile wasn't even a word or a term or an idea. Like, you just call it a dirty old man. And I don't think they saw a lot of difference between being a gay dude and being a paedophile. It was both. It was kind of nearly in the same families of how you would view a paedophile and a rapist. Like, not quite the same thing, but overlap. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this film has a running theme of dirty old men. Like obviously in that striptease place.
Oh yeah.
This happens in real life as well. They go in with like long overcoats and like, wank at the back.
Is that how it happens every time?
No, it's well known. Like,
I would just not allow people in the long
but
overcoats.
they still do it in Soho, like in the weird, dodgy little picture.
Yeah, but aren't those
houses
the
and-
ones where you're allowed to do it?
Well, it's well known they're doing it.
fair
But obviously, if
That's how Pee Wee Herman got cancelled back in the day.
if someone comes in with a long overcoat, you'll be like, you're gonna wank
Right,
in the back.
We're
aren't
gonna
you?
wanker. It's two midgets trying to get in for the price of one. So anyway, so the movie kind of is. You notice we're brushing over plot and not really like we went to the end and then came back to the beginning.
Yeah.
The movie's convoluted and jumbled. There's no point worrying too much about like giving a through line of the plot, but what it does have sort of a clear theme that it's going for, and it does have a clear character arc for Tommy. And eventually, there's no real clever way of how he ends up playing pinball. He just he runs away and ends up in a junkyard. And then he's just kind of like a pinball wizard. I didn't really get the connection, or maybe I missed something, but he just kind of starts playing pinball, and he pretty much overnight becomes an overnight sensation and is sort of a celebrity and becomes rich, and his mum and stepdad see him on the TV and they get all excited and they start becoming rich because apparently in this universe it seems like being a pinball wizard or being really successful in the pinball leagues or whatever's going on, he is akin to being a rock star, is what it feels like. I don't really know.
Yeah, it didn't really I think it even made a point that he is the pinball wizard and he's now won £1 million, and obviously that's a hell of a lot of money back then.
He's a pinball wizard, there has to be a twist. A pinball wizard got such a wrist. How do you think he does it? I don't know what makes him so good.
But he's
a lot
also
of money
world
now.
famous.
Yeah, he's world famous. From what I could read into it, Declan, is the Tommy album and this was modelled... I hate to say it because I hope he wasn't like molested as a kid and stuff. It's like modelled on his younger years and then becoming a rock star. So like a lot of that stuff later where Tommy is essentially like a cult leader is what it was like for them being rock stars. Like everyone throwing themselves at him.
Yeah, and you could guess that for much of the movie, but the part where it becomes clear is when Tommy's now becoming world famous and he starts getting a following, and this is the scene where you see he has a female fan who obsesses over him, and they all show up at essentially what is church, and he's playing on the altar, and it like we said at the start, it resembles Beatlemania. It's that same kind of thing. So that's when you see the closest connection. But that's another point where I was confused about what age Tommy was supposed to be depicted as at this point. Because I get that one of his female fans, it would be younger, even when you become a rock star, an adult-aged rock star. But I don't know. It was just, again, it was kind of like they were setting it up like she was gonna be a love interest.
Yeah, she was well young as well, wasn't
She was about 10, or she looked about 10. And again, I didn't know is she just supposed to be a fan, or is this another thing where it's dating itself? And back then it was like 14's of age, go have sex.
And for some reason, to like add into all of this, her dad was a vicar, who basically was like, no, you can't go to the concert, but she sneaks out anyway. And I was like, but why?
Which again, that's why I was probably overthinking it, but I was thinking, is this supposed to be symbolic of just the Cultural Revolution altogether? Because there was a whole element of, at the beginning, even when Tommy's still a boy, or when he's sort of an adult, but he's still living at home with his mum and stepdad, they're in church, but at the altar is this whole rock band, and they're going for everything. And there's this ongoing theme of the church and praying and religion being replaced by rock and roll, or in this case, pinball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have Eric Clapton as a preacher playing a guitar, like, do you know what I mean? But I got to go back to, like, I know we're kind of like, it's hard to talk about the plot.
It's going to be a nightmare.
It's hard to talk about the plot in this. But there's like that one scene which kind of really reminded me of Clockwork Orange. Do you know that weird fucking scene with Rex Beans? Rex Beans, and it was like, oh, there's that scene in Clockwork Orange about the milk. He's obsessed with the milk. And then later on, just like beans are just like coming through the walls, and I'm like, what is going on? Like,
yeah, his mum is watching him on TV, and she's annoyed because she's saying it's great he has all this success, but what's the point when he still can't express himself and interact with the world? And it's actually, in terms of the theme and the plot, it's actually quite a powerful moment. And then they decide, well, enough of that, let's throw a bottle of champagne at the TV and have baked beans fly out of it. And that's the point in the movie where I did just kind of shake my head and think. And then it's a sequence of about 4 minutes where she's like rolling around in beans, and then chocolate pours out, and I don't mind seeing Ann-Margret roll around in chocolate and her clothes starting to fall off. That's pretty cool. But it's the kind of scene where in this sort of era of experimental filmmaking, you'd have a bit of filler just to make sure it's actually 80 minutes long, because a lot of times these movies would be quite short. This movie's an hour and 55 minutes. It did not need this 6-minute sequence of her rolling around in beans, but it's those sort of details and ridiculous moments that kind of make this movie at the same time.
Poetic license, I guess. I wondered if it was shit.
I mean, it's not poetry.
Yeah.
Complete horseshit. But
I was wondering if that brown sludge was shit. I was like...
Yeah, I didn't really know. It was just very odd. And I just don't know where beans even in any way... Like, it didn't come up in the plot before. No. It was just beans all of a sudden for no reason.
And then the one that really topped it off for me is obviously when Tommy... I know I'm calling it a cult.
It is a cult.
Yeah, it's a cult, yeah. When Tommy becomes his own cult and is running his own Tommy Butlin's holiday camp, for some reason, Uncle Ernie, who's like fiddled around with him as a kid, and like, but he doesn't know that, does he? Because he can't hear, see, or hear whatever is on the pay books, like making everyone buy his merchandise. And I was like, this fucking film, man.
T-shirts and your stickers and your Tommy mirrors to smash. Don't rush, keep steady, have your money ready. Buy your way to heaven. That comes to £1.07. Bless you up. Buy your change in earplugs. Here, keep in line. I've got a huge supply.
Yeah, because that was an interesting thing again as well, is where so after Jack Nicholson visits and he's the specialist, and he basically, through a bunch of different ways, he has his breakthrough and he starts to be able to speak, and he can sing and he can see and he can do all these things, and he flies around on a paraglide. He flies around the earth on a paraglide, like singing to everyone, and then he kind of becomes this new messiah sort of figure. It's in the newspaper headlines, Tommy speaks, and it's this whole big deal. And he gets this cult, like you're saying, and there's hundreds and thousands of followers, like, all show up at the house, and the stepdad, because I didn't realise as well, he's still living with the mum and stepdad. And the stepdad's like, where are we going to put all these people? And he says, we'll build a camp outside, an extension. So they build the camp so everyone can be there. And I also feel like it was built around the junkyard. So anyway, yeah, so it becomes this whole thing where, but I guess it's that thing where he becomes a messiah, becomes a prophet, but then the religion comes into it, and then it becomes organised religion, and then that's where all the trouble comes into. Because he has, like you said, Uncle Ernie, the dirty fiddler, starts making merchandise and selling that. He starts, prostituting the whole good message that Tommy originally had, whatever the fuck that message is supposed to be. It beats me, I don't know what it was, but everyone was responding to it. But then he decides people are kind of getting a bit fed up with it, all his followers, so they're saying like, oh, what's the deal here? Like, teach us something. Like, why are we here? So he makes them all dumb, deaf and blind.
If you want to follow me, you've got to play pinball. And put in your earplugs, put on your eye shades, you know where to put the cork.
Yeah.
As a way of, I guess, maybe putting them through the same adversity he went through. But that doesn't work because everyone goes fucking mental and starts rioting and going crazy, killing each other, killing Tommy's parents and his stepdad, his mum and his stepdad. And eventually Tommy's just laying battered and bruised and crawling through the junkyard.
See me, feel me, touch me, hear me, see me, feel me, touch me, hear me.
What does this sound like to someone who hasn't
Yeah,
seen
I
the
know.
movie?
And then like there's yeah, he just crawls out from the junkyard. Everyone's gone, and then even though he's battered and bruised, he proceeds to climb a mountain.
Well, he doesn't just climb a mountain. He climbs through rivers
Yeah.
and rocks. I'm watching it like, I was thinking, is that a set? But it's not. Like, he really is just... Because that looks some dangerous stunts.
Yeah, I was worried
that he
about it. I
doing.
was like, imagine if he fell off.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. And he climbs the mountain, and as horseshit as it was, like, there was points where I was watching this movie and I was feeling like, oh, I actually kind of don't want to even review this later. And then 5 minutes later, I'd feel like, this is fucking hilarious. Like, I love it. What a bonkers movie. I'm loving this. This is absolutely mental. And then it'd go through another lull or a song I wasn't really digging, or like the baked beans bit, and then Jack Nicholson popped up and it was mental again and I was loving it. But when he was climbing up the mountain and he climbs up to the top and then he stands up in front of the sun, just like his dad did at the beginning of the movie, I did just like I really did just go with the movie the whole way. Like, I don't care about what it's supposed to mean. It doesn't have to mean anything. But I enjoyed it as I was watching it. Like, I went with it. I couldn't recommend it. And that kind of sounds like a contradiction, but I genuinely did enjoy it. If I had to watch it again in 10 years' time, I would enjoy it again, but I will never choose to watch this again. Do you know what I mean? It's a grueling... It was actually genuinely grueling to get through, but I kind of was not just loved it by the end, but was enjoying it the whole way through. It was such a bizarre experience, not what you're used to in terms of what you think you're going to get when you're going to watch a movie. None of the normal beats of any kind of coherent plot line. None of it's surrealistic the whole way through. Every single piece of dialogue is sung, and it's an incoherent mess for the most part. But it's brilliant, and it's the kind of film you're grateful ever got made. The kind of film that could only be made in the 70s.
To see, the great thing about this film is it's so divisive, because I was looking at like people's takes on it, and then like one person was saying the symbolism is when the mirror was broken and then he was free and all this, and then someone just commented underneath, this is drug-addled garbage. Do you know what I mean? And do you know what film it reminded me of? And I was racking my brains, and I cannot remember.
Can I guess before you say?
The name of it, yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show?
No. No, it wasn't. We reviewed it previously, that Australian film where he's fucking...
Oh, we never actually released that.
We never released it.
Bad Boy Bubby.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. It was a grueling watch, but obviously it's not the same. But I kind of was like glad when I got through it to the end, kind of thing. But you did warn me about that. I've never seen this.
But do you know what? That's what you... I feel like nearly that's why I came round again for the end of the movie. Is because when he's climbing up that mountain and he finally sees the sun, he's like, that's what you feel like. You feel like this has been just a bizarre trudge to get through. I've been punished as much as Tommy during this movie, just having to watch it. And when he climbs up the mountain and you have to watch him in all these different montages and sequence climb to the top of the mountain, and then that beautiful shot of the sun, which I want to know how they did. I don't think it was special effects. I think that was generally just in camera. They must have used a certain lens and got it at just the right time of summer or something like that. But it was beautiful. And you see Tommy silhouetted in front of the sun in like a Christ-like figure nearly. And you're like, yeah, I did it. I finished Tommy. I've watched it.
Listening to you, I get the music, gazing at you. I get the heat, following you. I climb the mountain, I get excitement at your feet. Right behind you, I see the millions on you. I see the glory from you. I get opinions from you. I get the story. Listening to you.
This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show.